How's it going, guys? My name is Sean. Welcome to Venom Racing. Today we're going to get my initial impressions on the Stage 1 COBB access port tune. And actually, guys, let's take a second to thank our sponsors. Wait, we don't have any of those. Alright guys, so today we're in my 2017 WRX, and so far I put 100 miles on it since I've done the COBB Stage 1 tune on it so far, off the shelf tune. So the number one modification that I read on the forums, or I mean, when you think of a Subaru, the number one modification you think of is a COBB access port. So before I actually purchased mine, I wanted to do a little bit of research. I wanted to make sure the car actually ran like it's supposed to, make sure all the maintenance was up to check, as you saw in the first few episodes. So I did all of that. I put about 1,000 miles on the car, so I have a good feeling of what the stock tune feels like, and I felt like it was time. So first things first, when you buy an access port, I bought a used one off the Facebook marketplace for around $450, which brand new they're like $670, which there's a big price difference. So if you buy one used, just be careful about, make sure they're unmarried from the car that it's on. But let me get to the point. So I went ahead and did the Stage 1 tune yesterday, and honestly it was a very easy process. You just download the access port manager. You can upload different tunes for different setups that you have and whatnot. Alright, so I uploaded the Stage 1 tune, and the first thing I noticed right away is just driving around town, it's at the throttle position feels more like it should have been from factory. From factory, you give it a little bit of throttle, and next thing you know, it's like feels like you're 100% into it, maybe when you're actually only putting 20% throttle. So it's really hard to modulate the gas for the most part. It's just felt really erratic, I mean, all of a sudden you just barely push your foot down a little bit more. Next thing you know, I mean, you were 10-12 pounds of boost, and it was throwing you back in the seat, which was kind of fun in a way, but at the same time it was really hard to modulate the gas. So that's the very first thing I noticed, was that on the Stage 1 COBB tune, is that when I give it 20% throttle, I'm getting 20%, where before you were getting like 50 at 20% or something of that nature, is what it felt like at least. And then when you're actually getting on the car, like getting into throttle, maybe 100%, it feels like it doesn't fall off, whereas before in the stock tune, it just felt like the power just fell off. Like once you're over 4,000 RPMs, like the car already gave everything that it had, and then you're just literally I don't know, it just felt like it was spinning its wheels at that point. Not literally, you know what I mean, the saying. So I just felt like the car just ran out of juice after about 4,000 RPMs, and I was like, I just felt like it was doing nothing at that point. So where now it feels like once it gets to that point, you can take it all the way to red line. It just feels like it keeps on. I mean, yeah, granted, it does fall. The horsepower, and the torque does fall off after a certain range, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like you can kind of stay on it, and you still have power. It's a lot more linear power band than it was before. I really feel like that alone, between the more linear power band and just how the gas pedal feels, I mean, that alone I feel like is almost worth the Stage 1 itself. Now, do I notice that much of a power increase? No, but they're not really going to notice a power increase for the most part, because you're just pretty much just getting more smoother power band, which is what the Stage 1 is for. So that's kind of my opinion on the Stage 1. Some people notice gas mileage increases. Like I said, I've only drove around on it for maybe 100 miles so far, so this is more of an initial impressions review for the most part, but I can see why you'd have better gas mileage, just because, I mean, you're not full into boost when you're not trying to be, where before you just barely pressing the gas a little bit, and next thing you know, you're full boost at that point. But now it just feels so much smoother to drive. I mean, for just the drivability of the car, I really honestly feel like this is how the car should have came stock. It's more enjoyable to drive, just a daily drive, I mean, for this car, I'm not looking for max performance. That's kind of more my Honda S2000, where this is more of just a daily drive, fun daily driver, where the Cobb Access Port Stage 1 tune is, I mean, it does everything that I really need out of this car. Another thing is too, is that actually one thing I really noticed about this new tune is that it's much more smoother. And the stock tune, it seemed like it had a rev hang. And you know, I mean, I almost thought that could be mechanical as well, maybe a heavy flywheel, but how it was set up, you could not shift from first to second without it being super, super jerky. Like, at one point I was trying to show John, and I had a few people in my car and stuff, and I was just showing them how it accelerates. Went from first to second, the car just jerked back and forth because there's really no smooth way to do it in the stock tune. And I don't know, it just was not that enjoyable of a tune to drive, where now it just shifts from first to second like a normal car, and it doesn't leave the revs hanging as long. So you can, I'm not saying speed shifting, but you can shift a little bit quicker and not have to allow for it to the revs to drop before letting the clutch out and getting back onto the gas. That's another thing I noticed about this tune, which is much more smoother than the other tune. And I know this is more about the Stage 1. Like I said earlier in my video, I would really, really like to try out MAP Stage 1 because I've heard nothing but great things about it. I'm not talking bad about Cobb, but I would like to, I know the Cobb tune is a little bit more conservative, where the MAP tune is supposed to be a little bit more aggressive, not a whole lot, but actually some people report even less knock and less dam drop on the MAP, even though it's a little bit more aggressive and you pick up a little bit more power. So that'd be cool to see. Now the bad thing about where I live at, I can only run 91, which sucks, Oklahoma, you know. So I mean, that's kind of the bad downside about it. But honestly, in my opinion, it's a Stage 1 tune. Is it, let's say this is the only Stage 1, I mean, that's the only tune you're going to go with. You don't plan on modifying the car any more than Stage 1, which you're going to need an access port if you're going to buy any modifications for this car, because that way you can tune for your other modifications. So that alone, I mean, you're going to have an access port regardless. So I think the access port is worth it. But if, let's say that you're like me, I might go Stage 2 in the future, but let's say that you don't plan on modifying your car at all. Is it $675 or $450 if you buy one used? Is it worth that just for the Stage 1 tune? I mean, that's going to be up to you at the end of the day. I mean, my opinion personally, I think it's worth it. The drivability of the car, it just makes the car more enjoyable to drive. It's much smoother. I mean, I really feel like Subaru kind of dropped the ball on their tune. I mean, I understand there's admissions and other reasons why that they had the tune set up that way, and let's say it gave you a little bit more low-end torque right at the beginning, and I guess it's easier for driving around town and stuff. It gave you that initial punch a little bit more, but I feel like the Cobb Stage 1 just truly makes the car how it should have came from factory, and it's much more enjoyable to drive. Might get you a little bit more gas mileage, and it might be a safer tune at that regards. A lot of people say the stock tune actually has quite a bit of knock in the lower end because they're trying to be more economical for admissions and try to save on gas mileage and stuff like that. So I feel like this might even be a safer tune to run versus the stock. But let's say you have a warranty and whatnot. I don't know if it's really worth that. But let's say you're like me, you have a car that has a rebuilt title, or maybe it's out of warranty, then I would say go for it. You know, then it gives you the availability and the room to grow for future modifications if you decide to go down that route. But in my opinion, guys, Stage 1 tune, is it worth it? In my opinion, yes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like the video, subscribe for more, and we'll see y'all guys in the next one.